I awoke to a slow, rhythmic sound. Two-woo-woo, 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 two-woo-woo. Where am I? What is that smell? The smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. My mouth went dry. How long have I been here? I tried my best to open my eyes, but it was too bright. With a groan, I immediately closed them and focused on breathing. I couldn't move, and every breath I took felt like a knife piercing my side. I slowly began to become aware of pain everywhere, as if some sort of veil was falling off of me. He woke up. Who was that? Mr. Davis, can you hear me? I nodded, or so I thought. Mr. Davis, you're in the hospital. You were brought in last night. The doctor will be here to talk to you as soon as he's free. Just try to relax and don't move any more than you have to. I tried to lift my arm and, oh shit, it hurt. What the hell did they do to my arm? The pain shoots all the way up to my shoulder. The stabbing pain makes me breathe even harder and that knife goes through me again. What the hell is going on? I decide to lie still and just try to breathe slowly and shallowly. I guess it must have gone away, and eventually I tried to open my eyes again. The vision in my left eye was blurry and I couldn't see anything with my right eye. I think a nurse walked by, so that confirmed what they told me. Another glance in my direction. She must have noticed me licking my lips because she offered me a straw and I took a sip. Oh yeah, so good. I don't know how much time passed. I tried to avoid anything that hurt me, but since that included breathing, I didn't have much success. A white coat moves in my direction. Mr. Davis, I'm Dr. Patel. You were brought in by ambulance last night. How are you feeling? How the hell do you think I'm feeling, you... At least that's what I was trying to say. Don't try to talk, Mr. Davis. You have a broken nose and a hairline fracture on your cheekbone. What the hell? He asks me a question and then tells me to shut up. Last night you were in surgery for 4 hours trying to repair your right knee. You also have 3 broken ribs on your right side and a compound fracture of your right forearm. Your eye? Yes, your right eye is swollen and puffy, but the damage is superficial. The swelling will subside in a few days. You actually had a mild concussion when they brought you in, so we want you to be completely rested for a while. You'll stay here until we're sure you're on the mend. How? I'm sorry, Mr. Davis. I don't have to answer that question. When you're ready, the police will talk to you. In the meantime, they don't want us to distort your answers. The nurses will take care of you. In the meantime, I suggest you just get some rest. You're still in post-op, but you'll be moved to your room soon. And then he was gone. What was that? What the hell happened to me? I was drinking and partying with my friends. I was dancing with... Oh yeah, Karen, the memory was coming back to me. I was dancing with Karen, my ex-girlfriend from high school. She was rubbing my leg and rubbing up against me. My God, she was even hotter than when we were in high school. Some guy kept trying to interfere. Who was it? It doesn't matter. She kept laughing at him and telling him to let her have a little fun for once. Oh yeah, now I remember. That wuss was her husband. They moved me to a double room and I got some sleep. I wanted them to put me to sleep for a week, but they refused. They said something about a concussion. Could it get any worse? I don't think I slept much, but it's impossible to say for sure. Time passed slowly when I was awake, and I measured it in breaths. Small, shallow breaths hurt less. My throat was dry. Where's the nurse? It hurt to even swallow. Who are these people making all this noise? They must be visiting the guy in the other bed. Could they please just shut the hell up? Breathe easy. Take shallow breaths. Just try to relax. Where are my visitors? Where's my wife? She should be here. I haven't seen my parents or my sister's family. Do they even know I'm here? Mr. Davis? I open my only healthy eye. He's looking down at me. Cheap brown suit, notebook, must be a cop. I nod. Mr. Davis, I'm Detective George Abbott. I've been assigned to your case. What can you tell me about last night? I'm trying to explain. I was attacked. I was minding my own business. I'm sorry, Mr. Davis. I can't understand what you're saying. Detective, he's not ready. The swelling's making it hard for him to talk, and the painkillers are making him dizzy. You should be back tomorrow. Thank you, nurse, Mr. Davis. I'll be back when you're ready to talk. The suit turned and walked out. What the hell? I'm ready. Find this guy. My side hurts again, and the pain in my leg has started to throb. Nurse! Nurse! My leg! Mr. Davis, does your leg hurt? Your painkillers are probably wearing off. I'll get you something. She comes back with 2 pills, water, and a straw. Just lie there and try to calm down. Don't move any more than you have to. You'll feel better tomorrow." She left before I could ask her where my wife was. I slept lightly that night, and the next day they put me on my feet with a walker. That's what they do now. When you have knee surgery, they want you to get up and walk right away. I walked to the far end of the hall and back. Then they put ice on my knee, and 4 hours later they make me do it again. I take the oxycodone as soon as they give it to me and take ibuprofen and acetaminophen in between like it's tic-tac druggies. I'm lying in my bed when the suit returns. "Mr. Davis, you may not remember me. I'm Detective George Abbott, and I'm here to talk to you about what happened." He paused for a moment as I nodded, then continued, "How much do you remember?" I shrugged. "I remember that night and leaving the party. I was walking across the parking lot when I was hit from behind. I vaguely remember falling, but that's it." "Do you remember what happened before that?" "It was our 10th high school reunion. I came from Chicago, where I live now. It was a cotillion. The committee decorated the gym, and we finally got all the drinks we couldn't get when we were in high school there." I thought it would get him, but Detective Abbott didn't even smile. "I met up with my buddies, some of their wives, the usual. My ex-girlfriend Karen was there with her wimpy husband. She ran up as soon as she saw me and dragged me to the dance floor. Hell, she was even hotter than when we were in high school. One song and it was like we were back in high school. She melted into me like she always did and soon was dry humping my leg. I mean, hell, she'd always been a cold-blooded fox. But that night she was out of control. Okay, I was bragging a little, but it was true, and I was just getting to the good stuff. "Do you remember anything else?" Her wimpy husband kept trying to intervene, and she kept laughing at him. At one point, she said, "Just go away and let me have some fun." Hell, she may have been cold, but to me, she was hot. We found a table, got a few drinks, and talked. She kept stroking my leg under the table until hubby finally dragged her back to their table. That didn't last long, and either she would come to me or I would go to her. I took her away from hubby's table 3 or 4 times. One more round on the dance floor, and it was settled. I ran to the men's room and ducked down the stairs to the men's locker room. 5 minutes later, she joined me. Hell, she was hot in high school, but that night she was on fire. She was screaming like a wild woman, and with all those tiles on the floor and walls, it's a wonder they couldn't hear us upstairs. Just when I thought we were done, she started up again. We finally slipped out of the locker room and went upstairs separately. The reunion was winding down, so I headed to my car. At some point, as I was crossing the parking lot, I was hit from behind. I remember hitting the ground, but that's all I remember. And then I woke up here. I looked past the detective and noticed a nurse standing not far away from him. She seemed to be listening. I guess she doesn't have a personal life of her own. Who cares? Detective Abbott nodded and took some notes, but I got the feeling he wasn't taking it seriously. "Is there anything else you'd like to add?" "No, that's all I remember." "All right then. I have your statement. I'll contact you in a few days if I need anything else." "That's it? Can you at least tell me something about what happened to me?" "Well, we don't have a lot of leads. Apparently there were some people in the parking lot, but no one admits to seeing anything." "What? No one? What about my friends?" "As far as we can tell, Mr. Davis, no one wants to admit they're your friend. Some people admit to seeing you at the reunion, but no one saw you leave, and no one saw the attack." "That's crazy. There must have been at least 20 people in the parking lot." "What can I say, Mr. Davis? No one's admitting they saw anything." "Well, what do you think happened?" "Off the record, we think Karen Jefferson's husband, Bill, kicked your ass." "That wuss? He may be a wuss, but he walks, and you don't. Doesn't seem to bother you too much. A crime was committed. That's the way it used to be." "What does that mean?" "It used to be a crime to have sex with another man's wife, but that law was repealed years ago. Now it's just a nasty thing that no decent man with a shred of self-respect would even think of doing." I looked him in the eye. He didn't even try to hide his disgust. Sighs. "Okay, I get it. You're going to pretend like this never happened." "Not at all, Mr. Davis. If anyone comes forward with new evidence, we'll certainly consider it. Right now it looks like another unsolved assault. There's a lot of those when it comes to drinking." "What if I press charges?" "You can do that. But without proof, it probably won't lead anywhere. Even if it does, you should know that juries here don't treat men who sleep with other men's wives well. There's a good chance that even with the evidence, you won't get a verdict you like. So you're not going to do anything? There's nothing more to do here. With these words, Detective Abbott turned and left the room. Typical cop. Where the hell is my family? Where are my friends? Why didn't my friends tell the police what they saw? Damn, I hated this sanctimonious city growing up, and I can't wait to get back to Chicago. That nurse who overheard me talking to the detective is still in the room. Nurse? Do you have a minute? She looks annoyed, but she comes over to me. My wife has been notified that I'm here? Yes, Mr. Davis. She was contacted when you were brought in. She was here when they brought you out of surgery with your parents. How come I haven't seen them? Were they turned away for some reason? No, they were talking to some of your friends when you were brought out of surgery, and then they left. With those words, she just turned and walked out of the room. They left? They just left me here? The next chance I get, I call another nurse. I'm sorry, but I had my cell phone when I was admitted here. Do you know where it is? It should be with the clothes you were wearing. She opens the closet and pulls out a plastic bag with a drawstring. Here it is. With those words, she hands me my phone and walks away. The phone is dead. After lunch, they take me to rehab. They make me walk here and there and tell me it's good for my recovery. The pain in my knee is indescribable. During therapy, they make me bend my knee. They are working on getting it to at least a 90-degree turn. It's about 45, and I feel like screaming in pain. The therapist tells me, no results without pain, but all I want to do is rip his head off and spit down his throat. When the rehab session ends, they wheel me back to my room. I guess they decide they've tortured me enough and feed me lunch. No one comes here for food. While I'm lying there eating Jell-O, my sister walks into the room. At last, I have a visitor. Sis, it's so good to see you. Where is everyone? Does anyone else know I'm here? She's not answering me. How are you doing? Shitty. I got a broken knee, I got a broken arm, I got 3 broken ribs, and I got a smashed face. I can see that. What did you do that got you in this condition? Nothing. I was just walking to my car after the reunion. She's ignoring my answer. Mom and Dad were worried about you. Why aren't they here? The nurse told me they were here when they wheeled me out of surgery, but then they left. We were all here. Why did you all leave? Damn it, I've been here for almost 24 hours and I haven't seen one friendly face since I got here. She ignores what I said and just seems to be looking around the room. At least you're here. I'm really glad you're here. I pull out a short straw. What? I was with Mom and Dad along with Janet, her parents, and her brother. Janet's here? My wife came down from Chicago, but she didn't bother to see how I was doing. Bill and his parents were here too. Bill? Who's Bill? And then it hit me. The detective said Karen's husband's name is Bill. Bill Jefferson. I believe you met him last night. Why was Jefferson meeting my parents? When are Mom and Dad coming? I don't know if they're coming. Like I said, I drew the short straw. What is that supposed to mean? It means we're not proud of you at all right now, little brother. You've embarrassed the family. Disgraced? I was attacked from behind. I didn't even have a chance to defend myself. My sister leaned in close to my ear and whispered, You fucked another man's wife, you sneaky piece of shit. You think Mom and Dad are proud of you right now? You think they want to show up at church next Sunday? Do you know what it was like for them to come face to face with Bill and his family and admit that they raised a despicable coward who sneaks around behind another man's back and has his wife? It wasn't my fault. She wanted it to be. A man can't resist that kind of pressure. By this time, she had straightened up again. She looked me in the eye and said, You are not just a man. You're a married man. And don't give me any of that bullshit about you being a victim. Everyone at the reunion is talking about how you went after her. Oh, she wanted it. It wasn't just me. Pig. So what if she wanted it? You could have shown some character and not embarrassed the whole family. I wasn't going to win this argument today, and I needed someone to help me. Okay. Maybe I could have behaved better, but it's all water under the bridge now. Nothing. When's Janet coming? Does she know? How angry is she? Well, she had a long talk with Bill and some of your former classmates, so take a wild guess. How did they find out? My sister shook her head. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Karen was screaming in the tiled room just below the dance floor, screaming like someone was being murdered. A few men ran down to the basement, followed by a few women, and everyone saw you two having fun like animals. Did you know there is cell phone video, multiple cell phones? Do you know what it was like for your wife to watch those videos? Do you think our parents liked it? Do you think Janet's parents liked it? You fucked up big time, little brother, and you're not gonna get away with it this time. I'm gonna tell everyone you're okay. And with those words, my big sister, who looked after me when I was little and protected me on the playground when the big kids bullied me, turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone. A day passes, and I spend it with an ice bag on my knee, swallowing painkillers. I can't even go to the bathroom without calling the nurse to help me get there. I have another walk down the hall and back, and I eat a dinner that wouldn't even pass for a meal in a kennel. All the while, I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say to Janet. These videos are going to be hard to refute. Eventually, I fall asleep. The next day, the nurse tells me I'm going home and that I'll need help for a few weeks while I continue physical therapy. I ask the nurse to call my parents. They will have to accept me no matter how upset they are. One more walk down the hall, a course of therapy, a large bag of ice and some pills, and I'm ready to go. The nurse tells me my parents are waiting for me downstairs, and I breathe a sigh of relief. My relief was premature. When I got to the doors of the hospital, I was happy to see that they were waiting for me. Everyone was there, including my parents, my sister, and even my wife and her family. I had been forgiven. Once again, my relief was premature. My loving wife walked over to my wheelchair, reached behind my back, and then slapped me in the face with everything she had. "You bastard!" she shouted, and then turned and walked out the door accompanied by her parents. My mother walked over to me and I cringed. "You're still my son and I love you, but I'm not ready to see you yet. We've agreed that you'll go to a rehab center until you can function on your own. Maybe by then we'll be ready to talk to you." My dad just said, "Don't count on it," and they both walked to their car. My wife's brother came up to me and said, "You know what I do for a living, right?" I said, "Yes, you're a lawyer." He dropped a thick envelope in my lap and said, "You have been served. The package contains a petition for divorce and a court order to stay away from your home, your wife, and your children until the case is heard." By the time I took my eyes off the envelope in my lap, it too was gone. "Sis, what's going on?" "Remember when I told you I drew the short straw? Now do you know what that means? Nobody wanted to come and see how you were doing. We drew lots and I lost." With those words, she turned and walked away. I thought that was it. But then I noticed another one leaning against the wall. If there was anger and sadness in my family's eyes, there was hatred and rage in his eyes. "Hey, Bill, I suppose you've come for your piece of flesh?" He straightened up, took a few slow steps toward the door, turned and said, "Get ready, Davis. I plan on taking it in installments." Then he disappeared. I thought there had been times in my life when I had been alone, but until that moment, I didn't know what loneliness really was. Everyone I thought cared about me had turned their backs on me, all because of someone else's wife on the side. What the hell was the big deal? The wuss was pissed. I understand that. But why my own family? I took a cab to a rehab center and settled in for 2 weeks of daily torture. They'd let me go when I could climb the stairs. In all this time, not a single person came to see me except my lawyer, and I paid him extra for that. I tried to call Karen, but she wouldn't return my calls. I found out later that she was struggling with her own divorce. My arm, ribs, and knee, not to mention my face, told me that Bill was not the forgiving type. I'll give her some time. Maybe she'll come to her senses. When I returned to Chicago, I found I still had a job, but I needed to find an apartment. The divorce was quick. It seems that although no one saw me get attacked in the parking lot, everyone lined up to testify about what they saw in the locker room. When it was over, my lawyer said I was lucky I kept my balls. That's the whole story of my reunion. I doubt anyone will forget about it anytime soon. I know I won't. "It's Dee. I have to take this," she said in an apologetic tone. We had a loose circle of 5 couples we met from time to time. We were closest to Dee and her husband Dave. She and Linda were best friends. Linda answered the phone with an "I won't be long" gesture. I could see Linda getting more and more excited talking to Dee, She was almost glowing when she finished talking and plopped into my lap. What if we all get together, get babysitters for the kids, have a proper dinner, dance at a nice club, and then get hotel rooms? That way we could get a little crazy and not worry about going home, and we'd end this horrible month right. I'll have to think about that. I didn't really know, but I was hoping that if I hesitated, Linda would use one of her patented, guaranteed successful female persuasion techniques to convince me. Instead, she grabbed a couch cushion and hit me over the head with it. Ow, okay, I've been thinking, let's do it, but there's one condition. What's that? Linda looked at me suspiciously. I took her pretty face in the palm of my hand and looked into her blue eyes. You're going to wear the dress you bought for Valentine's Day, but I haven't seen it yet. The 10 of us met at the restaurant. It was crowded on a Friday night, but we had reserved a table large enough for all 10 of us to eat together. We laughed, chatted, and enjoyed a great meal, happy in each other's company and glad that February was finally coming to an end. Linda was the most attractive woman in the restaurant, and I must have told her that half a dozen times. I touched her arm, shoulder, or hand as often as I could find a reasonable reason to. She would respond in kind and smile as she looked into my eyes. This was going to be an unforgettable night. The evening was going well, and we were all enjoying ourselves. We kept our wives on the dance floor for as long as they wanted, each of us trying to outdo the others with our grace, and as good manners dictate, we also danced with each other's wives. There is nothing inappropriate about this. In fact, quite the opposite is what polite people do. There was no jealousy, no leering, no gushing. While the 10 of us were relaxing, drinking water and nibbling on treats, Dave looked around the room in amazement. Isn't that Marc Lavaliere? Who's Marc Lavaliere? He plays for the local soccer team. What's soccer? Okay, that was said in jest, and we all laughed. We weren't the big sports type. Some of us play golf, softball, or even a little tennis in the summer, and embarrass ourselves on the basketball court in the winter. But we did it for the social aspects and exercise, not to imagine ourselves as some athletic superstars of an alternate universe. We were more likely to attend a Stephen Hawking lecture than sit for 2 hours watching millionaire athletes play ball. At this point, this discussion closed and we continued our conversation. Dee and I sat closest to the dance floor, Dee across from me, Dave to her right, and Linda to her left. I didn't have much interest in what was going on behind me, since everyone who mattered to me that night was sitting at the same table as me. I glanced at Dee, who had an expression of surprise and curiosity on her face. Don't turn around, but I think Lavaliere is coming our way. Well, you know what happens when someone says something like that. Everyone on the far side looked up, and the others who were standing with their backs to Lavaliere turned around to see what was going on. I think you're right. Do you think he wants our table? What can I say? We all suffered in high school, and we all recognized a bully when we saw one. Lavaliere walked over to our table and, looking past me as if I wasn't there, raised his hand, almost hitting my nose, and said to Linda, "Would you like to dance?" I've known Linda since college, and we have no secrets. That's good because we can read each other like a book, and what I saw on her face at that moment was amusement mixed with a little bit of annoyance. It was almost as if she had said, "What insolence." I felt Linda squeeze my hand under the table, and with a smile on her face, she said, "You'll have to ask my husband's permission." Lavaliere didn't like that. He wasn't used to being put on the spot. He looked at me with an expression that I can only describe as a condescending grin, and said, "Would you mind if I danced with your wife?" I knew the man well, though I had never met him before. I know the type. He was used to getting his own way and not asking permission from those he thought were beneath him. I toyed with the idea of telling him, "Yes, I object," but that would have given him too much pleasure. For someone like Lavaliere, it would have been an admission of fear and intimidation. Besides, I'm not in the habit of telling my wife what she can and can't do. The choice is hers. There was a look of arrogant victory on his face, and without repeating his request, he simply tilted his head to the side, raised his eyebrows, and extended his hand farther in Linda's direction. She squeezed my hand once more under the table, stood up, and walked out onto the dance floor with Lavaliere. I almost felt sorry for the bastard. She was out of his league, and he didn't even realize it. At this point, I need to tell you a little bit about Linda, myself, and our friends. First, If I ever suggested to Linda that she try something like an open marriage or a swap or some other nonsense, her answer would be quick and clear. Then, after a few minutes, when the extraordinary pain between my legs has abated, I will get up off the floor, sit down, and calmly explain. I like that about my wife. Infidelity offends her, and I never worry about her behavior. Second, my wife and I and our friends are ridiculously educated. This is not an insult to anyone. It just explains who we are. We set goals for ourselves and want to do something challenging with our lives. That means more than the usual amount of schooling. We're not snobs, and we have a lot of friends with different professions. We choose our friends based on their character rather than their classes, and we have pretty high standards. As for ourselves, we're not the type to follow the whims of pop culture or lose our heads to the influence of the crowd. Lavalier kept Linda on the dance floor first in a fast set, then in a slow set. I admit I was a little annoyed, but I figured he had invited her to his table to introduce her to other famous athletes. It would be an interesting experience that she could tell our parents and siblings about, so I was content to wait. At the end of the slow set, Lavalier led Linda back to our table, putting his arm around her waist and smiling. Linda looked at me with the same expression of surprise and annoyance and said to me, "Jim, Mark asked me to go home with him tonight. He promised me the most incredible sex of my life, much better than you can offer me. I told him I needed your permission before I could go out with him." There was a playful, almost mischievous glee in her eyes, and I knew she could barely contain her mirth. I had more success than my wife suppressing my amusement at the sight of this arrogant, highly paid athlete. "I'm sorry, dear, but this is unacceptable." "Oh, Fluff, you never let me have any fun." With those words, she slipped away from a startled and very embarrassed Marc Lavalier and sat down next to me. She was tired of playing with him. His confusion didn't last long. Lavalier looked at me angrily and said, "Listen, Cook, that bitch is coming home with me tonight, so get used to it." He really shouldn't have used that word. It might explain what happened next. I raised my hand to get his attention. "Mark, can I call you Mark? Mark, you need to understand something about the women at this table and their husbands. There are 10 of us, 5 engineers, 2 professors, 2 doctors, and a lawyer. You really don't represent anything special to us, so just go away and try to impress another man's wife. You failed with mine." Lavalier didn't like it. I think it brought him back to his school days and all those remedial classes. I have to say that for a man who makes his living on his feet, where he has to be aware of everything going on around him, his focus on me made him remarkably unaware of what was going on at the table. While I was trying to explain everything to Lavalier, Dee discreetly slipped her hand into her purse. When Lavalier barked out, "Look, Cook!" and reached for my collar to put pressure on it, he suddenly let out a "eh" and fell to the floor in spasms of uncontrollable muscle contractions. Dee shot him in the groin with her stun gun. Just like that, she was sitting right in front of him. She could hardly have missed. We all leaned over and looked down at him while he convulsed. Those of us closest to him stayed in our seats while those farther away had to stand up. He didn't seem to be very comfortable. "That suit needs dry cleaning." Eventually, he pulled himself together and, breathing heavily, got up off the floor. He reached for me again and screamed, "You sneaky little pooch, I'm going to—" He never finished his threat, nor did he see the wires pressed against his groin. Dee hit him again, and he fell to the floor again, squirming in convulsions. As we watched, Lavalier humiliated himself even more. "Oh, no, Oh, that's disgusting!" I raised my hand to get the bar's attention. "Clean up in aisle 6. Well, you can't hit a man with a stun gun in a crowded room, let alone a sports star, without attracting attention. And besides, the smell was already starting to reach the neighboring tables." Lavalier's friends were quickly approaching us. They made it to our little group, and at least one of them managed to get a glimpse of the stun gun wires at Lavalier's groin. "What the hell did you do to him?" "Did you?" I thought. "You can see the taser, right?" And yet I kept those thoughts to myself. "You can't do this to any of us." And as they approached us, Dee and the other women pulled their tasers out from under the table. Now the situation was getting interesting. 4 enraged athletes were looking at the working end of 5 stun guns, and their friend was lying on the floor, soiled. We let them stand there for what seemed like a very long time, hoping they could come to the obvious conclusion without our help. They didn't, but I assume they noticed the growing crowd of gawkers gathered around us and the bouncers who were busily evaluating their own muscles against those of their competitors. "Why don't you take your friend back to the table and pour a cold beer on his bottom?" This elicited giggles from the ladies. After a few more fierce looks and indecision, they decided to back off. As we watched the top 4 frogs on our team take their friend to the men's room, apparently to let him clean up, Linda said, "Boys and girls, I don't want to spoil the evening, but I'm not sure they're ready to leave this issue. What do you say we go out and have a coffee and maybe a couple of sweets on the way?" Without arguing, we signed the bills and gathered our things. As we left the club, I couldn't help but praise Linda for her play. "You know it's all your fault, don't you?" "How is it my fault?" "Okay." She smirked and was a little too proud of herself when she said that. "You're just so damn irresistible." I pulled her closer to me, and that gave me a loving kiss on the cheek with the promise of more. We soon forgot about Marc Lavaliere and his friends. I'd love to tell you that Lavaliere never learned his lesson until a bullet fired by an angry husband went through his knee, ending his soccer career, but the truth is better. As I've said before, you can't hit a man with a stun gun in a crowded room, let alone a sports star, without attracting attention. At least a dozen cell phone videos of Marc Lavaliere lying on the ground, squirming convulsively and getting dirty quickly flew around our city. The local news carried the story, albeit with significant editing of the content. It seems that his treatment of my wife, as well as others, was well known in town, and that part of the story was told, although Linda's name was omitted. The local hunting store began selling stun guns under the name Special for Marc Lavaliere and sold successfully. Whenever Lavaliere and his friends entered a bar or restaurant and he started to approach some man's wife, someone would inevitably pull his stun gun out of his jacket or purse so he could see it. It wasn't so much a threat as a humiliation, and he soon stopped his offensive behavior. His play dropped, and he was traded to a town where his off-field history was less well known. As for Linda and I and our friends, life is good. Our love is strong, and our kids are growing up fast. When you have a partner you can trust, Marc Lavaliere is no threat to your marriage. They will swagger, show off to the crowd, make threats, and play their games, but in the end, they will go home alone unless they find a less worthy partner. Have pity on them. They are empty, hollow people, almost worthless, and deep down they know it.